Imagine you saw a girl. You proposed her, made her feel good about herself. She can't but will overthink your compliment. The next day she compliments you back, or at least has a positive look on you. It will give you confidence boost and you are doing good in football. Coach compliments you more, and everyone is happy. So it goes on and on and on. Higher expectations lead to higher performance. But this video is not even started yet. We will show you all pros and cons of it. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Chapter 1. The Expectation Mirror. Imagine every interaction like a dance, where both partners are subtly guiding each other's moves. It's set by what we expect of each other. This dance is what psychologists call the Pygmalion effect, and it reveals a curious truth. We often become who others expect us to be. Expectations can act like invisible strings, pulling us toward behaviors that match those expectations. When someone believes you're capable, their confidence becomes a mirror, reflecting a stronger version of you. But when someone expects you to fail, that too becomes a reflection, showing you at your weakest. If you see a child struggling with a puzzle and you think they're not clever enough, you might unwittingly withhold guidance or praise. You might give up on them too soon, and they, sensing your lack of belief, may start to doubt themselves, lose interest, and give up more easily next time. It becomes a self-fulfilling cycle. They live down to your expectations just as much as they might have risen to them, had they felt your belief in their potential. Here's the twist. Our expectations are often just assumptions, shaped by past experiences, biases, or even how hot was that day. Stoic philosophy teaches us to see things as they are, not as we wish them to be. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If our thoughts about others are tinted with doubt, impatience, or bias, we paint them in those colors. But if we see them clearly, without preconceptions, we grant them the space to become their best selves. The trick is to step back and question our assumptions. Are they true, or are they just shadows of our past fears and prejudices? By understanding this, we begin to dismantle the invisible cage of expectations and allow others, and ourselves, the freedom to be something more. Chapter 2. Breaking the Cycle of Expectations. Think of having a situation wherein, each time you rise from bed, you feel as if someone is monitoring you, judging your every move. But in fact, it is all coming from a shadow that is not a part of you. That shadow is somebody else's dream, parent, friend, boss, or faith in you, which may be unreal, unattainable, or undesirable. It chases you, speaks in your ear. You can't, or you have to. The Pygmalion effect holds that these shadows are our reality. But what if we could come out of the darkness and live the lives that we choose to live? The first step is agreeing to the fact that such expectations do possess some sort of control over our lives. They occasionally start off in what may be considered as a non-threatening manner, a look, a breath, or a spoken utterance. However, over time, these create bonds that are as real as chains, but are not seen by the naked eye. Many times people are not bothered by events occurring in the world, but by their interpretation of these events. Epictetus rightly pointed out that it is not things that upset people. It is their perceptions of things. But imagine if we began to look at such judgments from a slightly different angle. Judgments as thoughts and not facts. What if, instead of letting them define us, we paused and asked, is this really who I am? We could then take the Stoic approach, concentrate on how we can make things better, and forget about things which we cannot change. It is impossible to dictate how other people perceive us. But more than often, what we can do is manage how we react to such perception. It is possible to make a decision based on our own belief system and not just complies with other people's expectations. Breaking the cycle means daring to question, will this expectation make me better or hinder me? That is a critical moment where you have an opportunity to stop and decide to write your script instead of repealing it, to come out from under the veil and into the lair of the light of our opportunity. Chapter 3. The Courage to Redefine Ourselves. There is something subtle that begins when we choose not to fit into the boxes that have been assigned to us. The voice inside the human head that declares "I am not who you think I am" requires bravery, particularly when the whole world has decided on otherwise. Expectations are like stones in the pocket, with every single step becoming a struggle and every single movement becoming a chore. Nevertheless, one has to be plain to open the pockets first to be able to walk on the streets once more. It starts with discovering what really matters to us in the first place. Just recall Socrates, who said that the only thing that is worst of all is to live without questioning. To what extent individuals question the parts they were assigned or the narratives that were imposed on them? Are we comfortable with them because it is easy, or because we are uncomfortable with the different? In order to re-establish ourselves, one has to remember that we are not fixed characters. We are not the sum of other people's opinions. We are flexible, malleable, and elastic, and therefore have the ability to transform and grow. But redefinition requires intention. In psychology, there is a notion called self-concept clarity, which reflects the level of one's identity, how clear and distinct the concept of oneself is. Research has, therefore, revealed that the extent of the clarity of self is inversely proportional to the impact of evaluations from outside. They just saunter through life like tall, sturdy trees with firm and strong roots. They are not bent by the winds of people's sayings. Therefore, how is this clarity to be created? The first step would be to discover what is in congruence with the beliefs and what is not. Pray for it, write about it, exist it. Realize that every now and then, one has a shot to decide, to step out of whatever story people have been telling about you, and to defy the words they put into your mouth, and to search for the gumption to write a new one. What is important to know here is that self-rediscovery is not about disowning people in your life. It is about repossessing yourself. It's about understanding the fact that nobody, but only yourself, can determine who you are. Chapter 4. Learning to deal with the pressure. There are so many voices in one's life, and all these voices try to lead the person in different directions. Some are noisy, telling us to become more, to accomplish, to triumph. Still, others mumble the fears into our ears, telling us to remain invisible, to not aim big. These voices are the people we interact with in our day-to-day lives. Everyone has something they wish to see in us, or something they fear we may become. This is what makes it very difficult not to get lost in all this noise and forget ourselves. In this ocean, we have to have a compass, which is a clear understanding of our identity and our values. The Stoics became convinced that there is an inner citadel, an invulnerable part of a person that should not be influenced by other people's judgments. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be content with what you are, and wish not change, nor dread your last day, nor long for it." It means that people should accept themselves with their imperfections, and other people's failures and disappointments are not their business. This should not, however, be misconstrued to mean total disregard for other people. Indeed, we are social beings, and thus we need to connect, to empathize, and be understood. It is not about instead listening to them, but to be able to listen and not let these voices overpower us. When someone expects something of us, whether good or bad, it's helpful to ask, am I comfortable with this expectation, or does it fit into the person that I am, or the person that I want to be? Is it inspired as the greatest literature, from love, wisdom, and understanding, or is it an expression of their fears and lacks? Social psychological studies further propound that people who are able to optimize on the demands and the self-generated standards are more likely to be psychologically healthy. They become able to differentiate between the opportunities that foster growth and the opportunities that hampers growth. Managing other people's expectations, therefore, is not about provoking them, but about seeking to understand which are worthy of respect and which are better left alone. It is about understanding the difference between being guided by other people's opinions and having our course determined by them. Real liberty is found in the ability to hear and to follow, or not to follow, the internal signal. Chapter 5. The pressure to be perfect in an imperfect world. It is quite difficult to describe, but it feels like being caged in a society. Everyone is expected to be perfect. We are led to believe that our goal is to achieve perfect scores, perfect jobs, perfect love. And thus, expectations rise, each one of them a brick in a wall that is growing between the person and the persona. But here's the truth. There is no perfection. It is something like a mist that vanishes when approached. This was something the Stoics were well aware of. They came to accept the notion that it is impossible to achieve perfection and that it is not important to try. Fortune, Seneca stated, over-promises and under-delivers. No man has been so far advanced by her that she does not demand more. Perfection is an unwinnable game. However, the Stoics preferred virtue, which is the optimal utilization of the available resources in the present circumstance, imperfection included. They perceived it as a process, not as a goal, as a journey of becoming better people, not as arriving at the state of moral perfection. Self-compassion is the first step toward learning how to embrace imperfection. Self-compassion has been found in psychological research to increase people's resistance and drive. Instead of blaming themselves each time they fail, they embrace the fact that failure is inevitable in the process of learning. It does not mean the acceptance of the average. On the contrary, it means accepting the fact that progress is not made in a straight line, but in a zigzag. Well, what if we changed our narrative when it comes to mistakes? What if we did not reject and hide our imperfections as though they are shameful and only serve to remind us of our shortcomings, but rather as part of the personality? In a society that celebrates perfection, it is brave to embrace the imperfections, the flaws, and the untold narratives. Indeed, a flawless image is brittle. It breaks when confronted. However, an imperfect but real self is fluid and has the potential to flex, adjust, and evolve. Accepting that things will not always be perfect allows you to escape the pressure that comes with expectations from other people and even self-expectations. We learn to appreciate the process and not just the goal, and we learn that the worth of an endeavor is not reflected in how perfect we execute it, but in how genuine we are in our endeavors, how courageous we are in our beliefs, and how moral we are in our intentions. For context, comparison is actually mostly good. Many times we don't see our own flaws or achievements. It's actually a manly habit. It ignites a spark to do something, and that's why we often demonize this very habit. Though doing it more often without taking action is actually very harmful. We hope you are enjoying this video. Now let's discuss the positive sides. Just a quick reminder, if you're enjoying this video, please consider like and subscribe, and thanks a lot if you did already. Moving on. Chapter 6. The Power of Self-Expectation. While we often talk about the expectations others place upon us, there's another force at play. The expectations that we have developed in our minds. These are the unspoken, frequently unconscious expectations we have, requirements that guide, distinguish, and form our decisions, directions, and selves. In contrast with the above discussed external expectations, these self-expectations are more of personal nature that is based on the person's values, beliefs, and goals. With them, we can achieve greater heights or face our biggest challenge. Self-expectations are strong since they originate from within, from the narratives that we have or create about ourselves and our desired future. They can take us to the heights of glory and make us go beyond our limits and achieve what we are capable of doing. However, if these expectations are too strict or unattainable, then they will lead to self-criticism, anxiety, and burnout. In that, the Stoics are very emphatic on the fact that balance should be observed at all times. Epictetus said that one should make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. This is not a call to inaction, but indicates that we must aim in a manner that is feasible. Psychologically, it focuses on having realistic expectations about ourselves. which means having high enough goals that will encourage us to work and achieve more, but not excessively high, which would cause us to constantly scold ourselves for not reaching them. A self-efficacy study, which is a measure of an individual's confidence in his or her ability to achieve a given task, indicates that moderate goals assist people in performing better than they would if the goals were set too low or too high. It's like setting a goal which is achievable, but at the same time high in order to encourage one to work harder. Positive self-efficacy simply implies the notion that when we think that we can do something, then we shall do everything possible to ensure that we do it. But if our expectations are colored with perfectionism or fear of failure, then we are likely to self-sabotage. It is therefore important to be our own competitor and at the same time our own friend, to establish expectations that reflect the best we want while at the same time having realistic expectations in order to encourage progress and development, to pose questions to ourselves. What do I really want? And the second, not less crucial question, why do I want it? Is it due to one's own desire and vision, or is it the echo of someone else's desire? Self-expectations should be like a lighthouse, guiding us toward our true north without drowning us in its light. They should inspire us to become better without making us feel lesser. And above all, they should remind us that our worth is not tied to what we achieve, but to the courage, integrity, and grace we bring to each endeavor. Chapter 7. The positive side of comparisons. To compare is always depicted as taking the joy of the other person as a vein that hinders the brilliance of the self. But there is also another story that says that comparison can also be aimed at positive changes, self-development, and learning. While we may think that measuring ourselves against others is a negative activity that involves envy and resentment, there are cases where this is not so. It can be about a call to action and about raising the bar for what we want to accomplish and for what we can accomplish. Think about how a musician feels when inspired by a virtuoso or an athlete who wants to improve the record of the colleague. This is known as positive upward comparison, refers to the case where one compares themselves with someone that is doing better than him or her, in the hope that he or she may also improve. If we see a person doing well in a particular field that we are interested in, then there is a tendency that it will also ignite a fire and make us realize that there is more to life. Psychosocial scientists have discovered that positive comparison is likely to lead towards better efforts and harder goals being set and achieved. The crux of the matter is that we have to learn not to view other people's success as our failure, but as the potential we have. This notion is quite compatible with Stoicism, according to which one should imitate other people's achievements without feeling less superior. Marcus Aurelius said that it will be good to willingly take on the role of imitating the virtuous conduct of people who live virtuously, but without bitterness and self-loathing. There is such statement made by the Stoics concerning people we meet. Every person can be a teacher, a master, or a mirror that shows our better self. But there is a thin line between influence and jealousy. The difference is in what we make out of the comparison. When we see others succeed, we ask not, how can I compete, but what can I learn? How is it that they got there? And what can I do to get better? These shifts make it less of a war and more of a rising together, which is co-elevation. Therefore, the positive side of comparison is about reframing our perspective. Instead of letting it weigh us down, we use it to climb higher. Instead of seeing it as a race, we see it as a relay, where the success of others can propel us forward. And when approached with humility and gratitude, comparison transforms from a source of discontent to a powerful force that shapes us into better versions of ourselves. Chapter 8. Feedback and shaping expectations. Feedback can be a powerful weapon to help one to grow, or a sharp knife to cut one's wings and bring out the worst in him. This is because how we take feedback and the way we perceive it has a great impact on the expectations that we set in ourselves and others. When done correctly, feedback assists in identifying our weaknesses, finding new opportunities, and improving our skills. However, when received in a negative manner or when the message received is negative, then it serves to strengthen the negative beliefs and expectations. The Stoics valued feedback as a means to self-improvement. Seneca believed, "There is no person so severely punished as those who subject themselves to the whip of their own remorse." This is a reminder that feedback should not be used to whip ourselves with regret or self-criticism, but to guide us toward virtue and wisdom. Feedback is less about judgment and more about an opportunity to reflect and grow. It's not the words themselves that shape us, but how we choose to respond to them. From a psychological point of view, feedback can be a great motivator, but only if it is concrete, specific, achievable, and presented in the positive form. According to Carol Dweck's work on the growth mindset, people who believe that feedback is an opportunity to learn are more persistent, not prone to failure, and more effective in pursuing their objectives. On the other hand, the growth mindset perceives the feedback as a judgment of the abilities and may lead to avoidance and negative attitude. If feedback is to be used effectively, then this has to be done in balance so that a more positive outlook is achieved. Take criticism not as an indication of your value, but as feedback, information to analyze, sort out, and apply where necessary. Ask yourself, what truth is there in this? How can this make me better? Feedback is not always right, and feedback is not always wrong. It is a call to self-introspection, an opportunity to check whether one is living a noble life or if there is a way that one can change for the better. When we are open to feedback and our spirit is not tense, then it is not as scary and as a result is more empowering. It helps us to trim our sails while we still know the direction we are headed. In this way, feedback is accepted as a way to learn and improve rather than a measure of one's worth, thus keeping the self-esteem constant. And in doing so, we create our expectations into a ladder to ascend higher and higher towards becoming the best versions of ourselves. Chapter 9. Mirror of Values. Expectations are people's reflections of what they cherish and what they hope to turn into in the future. Thus, every expectation, no matter where it comes from, has its origin in some value, a principle that defines the course of action. From expectations and values, we get an understanding of why people think or behave in a certain manner and how best to respond to the behavior. Think of it this way. Promises are on the outside while principles lie deep down. Every time we experience the pressure of standards, we need to ask, whose standards are these? Are they standards that we as human beings want to grow, be kind, creative, etc.? Or are we being dragged by the society pressure of success, beauty, or the status that we are supposed to achieve? Such reflection is important as, according to the Stoics, one's values should be selected deliberately rather than being adopted by default. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." This means that what we do and what we expect others to do should reflect the truth that is right in our hearts. Values clarification is one of the practices in psychology whereby people define what they consider to be important. Science proves that when people use their values as guide to their everyday behavior, they feel happier, more protected, and have more meaning to their existence. When those expectations stem from our personal values, they do not feel like pressure or stress, but are motivating instead. This is where we begin to find purpose in what we do not as duties, but as aspirations of the kind of persons we wish to become. But when expectation is in conflict with the values, trouble starts. Perhaps we may be stressed, frustrated, or consistently unhappy, or it seems as though we are living other people's life. The Stoics, for instance, urged people to take time and review their aspirations and objectives to see if they are noble. This enables us to target factors that are within our control, behavior and thoughts, while excluding those beyond our control, such as people's perceptions or social expectations. So what does this mean in practice? It means taking time to pause and reflect. Ask yourself, what are my core values? How do my expectations reflect those values? By aligning expectations with values, we move toward a life that is not only productive, but also meaningful and authentic. We learn to walk a path that is truly ours, where every step feels like an honest expression of who we are and what we stand for. Chapter 10. Using the Pygmalion Effect. The Pygmalion Effect, with its cycle of expectations and outcomes, is a powerful testament to the influence our beliefs can have on reality. From personal interactions to professional environments, understanding and harnessing this effect can transform how we approach growth, both for ourselves and others. At its core, the Pygmalion Effect reveals that the expectations we hold, whether positive or negative, can shape the behaviors and achievements of those around us. This is not merely about wishful thinking, but about a profound interaction between belief and performance. By setting high expectations and by believing in the potential of others, we can inspire remarkable achievements. Conversely, low expectations can inhibit potential, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy that limits growth. The Stoic philosophy, which teaches acceptance and focus on what we can control, aligns well with the principles of the Pygmalion Effect. It encourages us to be mindful of the expectations we set and how they influence those around us. As Marcus Aurelius said, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injustice. In this context, the revenge is not about retaliation, but about rising above negative influences and setting a standard that reflects our highest beliefs. To effectively harness the Pygmalion Effect, consider the following practices. Set positive expectations. Whether mentoring someone or managing a team, set high but achievable expectations. Your belief in their potential can catalyze their performance and growth. Provide constructive feedback. Offer feedback that is specific, actionable, and encouraging. This helps reinforce positive behaviors and builds confidence. Reflect on your own expectations. Regularly examine your beliefs and expectations about yourself and others. Ensure they are aligned with genuine potential rather than limited by past experiences or biases. Ultimately, the Pygmalion Effect teaches us that our expectations have the power to shape outcomes. By consciously cultivating positive expectations and embodying them in our interactions, we foster an environment where potential can flourish. Embrace this power with responsibility and awareness, knowing that the beliefs you hold can not only influence others, but also create a ripple effect that enhances growth, performance, and self-fulfillment. In this way, we turn the Pygmalion Effect from a mere concept into a practical tool for fostering excellence and realizing potential, both in ourselves and in those we inspire.